Welcome to this explainer. You know, if you thought this 2026 World Cup qualifier between Portugal and Hungary was going to be a straightforward night in Lisbon, well, you're in for a massive surprise. We're talking about a match that literally had absolutely everything. Let's dive right into how an expected coronation turned into an absolute chaotic nail-biter.
90. That's it. Just 90 minutes stood between Portugal and their guaranteed ticket to the 2026 World Cup as they walked out onto the pitch. The setup honestly couldn't have been more perfect. All they had to do was handle business at home against a Hungarian side they were heavily favored to beat, and bam, their spot was secured.
So the stakes right at kickoff were just massive. Think about it. For Portugal, the mission's clear. Win, qualify, and keep that perfect record at the top of Group F. But then you have Hungary. They're fresh off a win against Armenia, and their motivation is sky high. Scoring a first-ever victory against Portugal, that would throw a huge wrench into the group and bring back all sorts of uncertainty.
Which brings us to Act 1, the setup and the shock.
Right out of the gate, despite Portugal absolutely dominating the early attacks, the script gets completely flipped. Against all odds, Hungary secures the first goal they have ever scored in a qualifying match on Portuguese soil. No way, right? What happened was an initial save by Diogo Costa led to this really awkward scramble, and Attila Szalai just pounces and finds the back of the net. A truly historic, stunning moment for the traveling fans.
All right, let's move on to Act 2, the veterans' response.
Now, what's fascinating here is how a certain superstar reacted to being dragged into a deficit. Cristiano Ronaldo personally absorbed all that pressure. And the driving force behind it? 6. It's his overriding ambition to play in a record 6th World Cup. Driven by that massive milestone, he stepped up, took absolute control of the game, and basically refused to let qualification slip on his watch.
And we really have to talk about his track record here, because his dominance against this specific opponent is pretty much unmatched. He arrived in incredible form. We're talking 7 goals in his last 7 appearances for Portugal. And by the final whistle, he'd bagged his 8th and 9th overall goals against Hungary. Fun fact, he only has more international goals against Luxembourg. He's literally an absolute nightmare for their defense.
But, you know, Ronaldo didn't do it entirely alone. The tactical setup from the Portuguese fullbacks was genuinely masterful. Here's exactly how they managed to turn the whole game around right before halftime. First, Nelson Semedo creates an extra man in the penalty area and scores this beautiful, precise pass for Ronaldo to instinctively finish. Then, literally, right before the whistle, Nuno Mendes delivers another crucial ball. Timing really is everything, and just like that, suddenly Portugal is leading 2-1.
Now we enter Act 3, a second-half battlefield.
At this point, you'd probably expect Portugal to just cruise, right? Well, wrong. The game morphed into this absolute battlefield of near misses and spectacular defensive heroics. I mean, it was pure end-to-end action. The Hungarian keeper, Balázs Tóth, was massive, pulling off these incredibly sharp saves against Pedro Neto and João Felix. On the other end, Diogo Costa had to make some crucial stops against Roland Szalai to keep his team ahead.
And we've got to highlight Ruben Dias here. He was practically playing as both a striker and a goalie. Take this one insane moment. A dangerous Hungarian cross from Milos Kerkez cannons off the underside of the crossbar, and Szalai is rushing in for what looks like a guaranteed equalizer. But Diaz shows these exceptional reactions, stepping across at the absolute final second to clear the danger. Absolutely crucial.
Which leads us right into the stoppage time equalizer. So it really seemed like Portugal had weathered the storm. But just look at the incredible, chaotic arc of this match. You've got the early shot goal from Szalai, then the late first-half response where Ronaldo takes the lead. Portugal controls the tempo for most of the second half until the 91st minute. Deep into stoppage time, Dominik Szoboszlai steps up and scores his 17th international goal. It totally silences the home crowd in Lisbon and puts Portugal's progress completely on ice. The aftermath of this thrilling 2-2 draw is just huge for both sides. Let's break it down. For Portugal, that pristine, perfect record is officially broken. Sure, they remain at the top of the group, but the big celebration and their actual qualification are delayed. But for Hungary, wow. Scoring both the first and last goals of the night breathes this aggressive, new life into their campaign. It vastly strengthens their claim on second place in Group F.
So, here's what we're left to ponder. With Portugal's aura of invincibility shattered, and Hungary riding this massive wave of late momentum, how are these two teams going to handle the mounting pressure when the World Cup qualifiers resume next month? The tactical battles, the tension, and the sheer unpredictability of Group F are clearly far from over. Thanks for joining me for this explainer, and we'll see how the drama unfolds next time.